Yes, people, welcome back to the channel. Well, today is a really exciting video for me. As you can tell by the title, I think I may have stumbled across, should I say. I may have stumbled across a brand new, not a brand new because the Quran's been read for 1400 years. I think I may have discovered an ancient revelation in the Quran. Now, as you know, if you watch this channel, a few days ago I reacted to Surah Al-Jinn. That video is now on about 1,000 and something views. Let me just check. 1,100 views at the moment. So it's doing quite well. But yeah, when studying that, as you saw in the video, I was quite confused about what the message was, what it really meant. What the shooting star thing was about, what the guards and the guardians were about, preventing the jinn, leaving the earth, going to the heavens, or coming to the earth and from space or from somewhere else, from the heavenly worlds, and trying to get into it. It was really confusing. So I was thinking about it afterwards, and then something sprung to mind, something just sparked in my memory, and I remembered from studying, as you know, I study like all religions and faith and like mysticism and stuff like that. I just find that really interesting. That's just a personal hobby of mine. And in the Law of One, the raw material, something I've studied for about 5 or 6 years now, they talk about a quarantine that was placed on Earth 75,000 years ago. And I went and checked back, and I cross-referenced between the stuff from Surah Al-Jinn about this light grid, this place of fire and guards and shooting stars where people couldn't cross through, or jinns couldn't cross through. And I cross-referenced it with the stuff in the Law of One, and it matches up perfectly. Like, the congruence is it's undeniable in my opinion. So I looked up Surah Al-Jinn a bit, and I've looked on qu'ran.com and other stuff, and no one's really got a definitive. It's not crazy because it's a really complex thing to understand, but no one's really got a definitive meaning as to what Surah Al-Jinn is really about, and the way it switches from the jinn's perspective, and then it switches from God's perspective, then it switches to the angel's perspective, then it switches to a human's perspective. It's kind of hard to keep track of. And it seems now 1400 years later, well, the raw material, the Law of One, the raw material, the stuff the text I'm talking about, which has kind of brought about this new revelation, that was released in 1981. So it's not until 1981 that some kind of explanation to this surah, some real debriefing of it has come out. And not until now, 2021, that it's taken someone like me who's read both texts, who can match up the stuff. So let me just briefly tell you a bit about the raw material. So the Law of One, the raw material, is a book that was released in 1981. So basically there was a science experiment done in the late 70s, early 80s by a professor called Donald Elkins. He was a physicist, professional physicist, a professor at, he was a lead physics professor at Louisville University. He earned 3 degrees in engineering, completing his last degree in 1960. He worked at the University of Alaska and created this mechanical engineering program. He then returned to Kentucky to be the lead physics professor there. This is a qualified professor, a scientist. He put together a research group with a woman called Carla Ruckert and a man called Jim McCarty. Jim McCarty had a master's in social sciences. Carla Ruckert had a master's in English and administrative services, and obviously Donald Elkins had his PhD, his doctorate, his professor qualification in physics. These were qualified, well thought after, intelligent, smart people. So they conducted this experiment basically where they managed to get in contact with a group of beings who claimed to be an extraterrestrial race who previously lived in our solar system. They don't live here anymore, but they basically they had conversations with this group, and those conversations basically talked about everything from the history of Earth, pyramids in Egypt, Easter Island, the Nazca Lines, God, the one creator, ancient Egyptian civilization, Pharaoh Akhenaten, Prophet Muhammad, Jesus, the whole history of Earth, Atlantis, UFO technology, electromagnetic technology, Nikola Tesla, everything you can imagine they talked about in these conversations. And basically these conversations were compiled together by the team and released in 1981 under the name The Law of One, the Ra material, because this group of extraterrestrials that they had these conversations with went by the name Ra. The same way, if we were to meet people from another planet, we would say we're from the human race. So they say you can call us the Ra race, R-A race. So they are the Ra race, the Ra civilization. We're the human civilization, they're the Ra civilization. And they had this conversation and the books came out. Now, in these books, in these tellings, I won't go too deep into it. I mean, if you want to read it yourself, you can. But basically, they said that there was once a civilization on Mars. This civilization destroyed itself, or it was destroyed through war. Basically, the war was so bad that the atmosphere on Mars was destroyed, and all life was wiped out because there was no more breathable atmosphere. This happened 75,000 years ago. Basically, some of the people from Mars were brought to Earth, and then there was a quarantine put on planet Earth because it's basically to do with maintaining free will of the people on Earth, free will of the people of Mars, not violating God's free will. So basically, a quarantine was placed around planet Earth 75,000 years ago to stop certain negative entities. So basically what they say is in this universe there are service to self beings and there are service to others beings. Service to self beings are those who you could say are maybe evil, negative beings. They want to enslave people, they want to cause elitism, they want to separate people, they don't want to unite people, they want to cause fractions and wars and violence. They're disruptive. They want to, they're not here to unite and they're not here for goodness. Then you have service to other beings who want to help people. They want to promote oneness and unity, and basically they want to have positive actions, not like negative actions, not causing war, but they want to unite people. They want to unite people under one God, the oneness of the Creator, the oneness of the universe, the oneness that we all share with each other as souls, and about our true essence. So what they say is that in our solar system there is a council, and in this council there are guardians of our planets. Well, they're not guardians of just our planet, they're guardians of the whole solar system. So the guardians of our solar system, they placed a quarantine of light around our planet 75,000 years ago, so that any negative entities that are on Earth, they can be watched and observed by the guardians for what they're doing. And when they try to escape back to what you call the heavens or space, or escape out of the Earth, they will be stopped by this quarantine. The guardians will approach them, they will hail them up in the light of the Creator, in the name of the one Creator, and they'll have to explain themselves, or their actions can be controlled, or they'll be prevented from leaving Earth, or they'll have to stay where they are and under the watch of the guardians. And it also works the other way. If any negative entities try to come into Earth, say this is Earth, they try to come into Earth, they will hit the quarantine light, they'll be held, they'll be bathed in light, the guardians will approach them. The guardians are patrolling the quarantine day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're patrolling this quarantine, looking for anyone that's trying to break the quarantine, and they'll be held in the light. They'll be bathed in the light, they say, and the guardians will approach them. They'll hail them in the name of the Creator. So say stop in the name of the one Creator. These people in their craft, what we're going to call a UFO or a spaceship, they will stop and they will have to explain what they are doing here, what they want with these people on Earth, what are their intentions for coming to Earth. Are they peaceful? Are they violent? Do they wish to bring peace? Do they wish to bring safety and sanctity? Are they looking to help, or are they looking to corrupt and cause evil and disruption and elitism and enslavement and war? And if obviously they're here for negative reasons, they're rejected, they're sent away from the planet, and the guardians, keep an eye on them and they don't allow them to come to the planet. So yeah, basically, in order to prevent any further violations of the Creator's law of free will and the law of what they call the law of confusion, which is basically the law of free will, the Council placed this quarantine of light around the planet. So for the last 75,000 years, ET racists who wanted to interact with the people on Earth, they have to lay out their plan to the Council, and only if this is seen to be in the love and light of the infinite Creator and in the teaching of the law of oneness, one Creator and oneness within us, then the quarantine can be lifted and those beings will be allowed through to do whatever work they want to do. But without this permission, they can't get through the quarantine grid, this grid of light that surrounds planet Earth. Now, if you read Surah Al-Jinn, this will sound very, very familiar to you. Suddenly, cogs start working and you're like, okay, I see what's going on now. Now, let's cross-reference the Quran with the law of one and see what we find here. All right, as you can see, we'll start from, this is Surah Al-Jinn, we'll start from 72.4 in Surah Al-Jinn. Now I'm on qu'ran.com. This gives two English translations. This gives the translation by Dr. Mustafa Katab from the Clear Quran organization, and it has a translation from the Sahih International organization as well. We'll read both of these English translations and we'll cross-reference it with the law of one, the raw material, and we'll see what we can find. You're going to find this very interesting. So, Surah Al-Jinn, verse 72.4. Now, this is the jinn talking. This is from the jinn's perspective. Now, the jinn in the jinn in Islam are seen to be like demons or evil beings. In the raw material, they say what they call the jinn, they refer to as the Orions. So basically, as you know, in Islam there's 7 heavens, or in the raw material they call it 7 densities. These are 7 stages of evolution, 7 stages of light. As you progress through, we're currently the 3rd density. We're physical, very physical. As you progress through the stages of evolution, you get more and more dense with light material and less dense with chemical, physical material. All right, so these beings that the Ra group describe, they say they're between 4th and 6th density beings. So a lot of them will not even appear to us. They'll be mostly light beings. They can do things using electromagnetic electricity and things that we cannot even do. They live in a dimension or a density higher than us. So a lot of the times we cannot even observe them with the physical tools that we have. Now they call them the Orions because the Orion star system is a place with a lot of planets where these negative entities come from. It's not that all negative entities come from the Orion star system, but a lot of the ones that are interacting with Earth, they come from the Orion star system. So they just refer to the whole negative entities trying to interact with Earth as the Orion group. So, and the Quran refers to them as the jinn, negative entities trying to interact with Earth. They were with God, they know of God, they know of the oneness of God, they know of the power of the creation, but they're trying to do negative things. Quran calls it jinn. The law of one calls them the Orion group. So let's read now from 72.4 in the Quran. This is the jinn talking now about those who have transgressed God, who have talked down God, who have disrespected God and the oneness of God and the oneness of people under God in God's creation. Oneness of people under God in God's creation. Yeah. So 72.4. This is the jinn speaking now. So they say, and that foolish of us used to utter outrageous falsehoods about Allah. This is the first translation from the Clear Quran. The second translation, and that our foolish one, Iblis is like the leader of the jinn, the leader of what you might call the Orions, the negative entities, and that our foolish one has been saying about Allah an excessive transgression. Now what's important here to note firstly is that they're talking as a group. They're saying our foolish one, our foolish leader has been talking all this madness about God, all these transgressions against God. We're not all for it, but this is the message we've been given by our leader, and this is what we're coming with, and this is why we're corrupting these earth beings. the jinn continue to speak. They say, we certainly thought that humans and jinns... Oh no, this is the angels now speaking. See, this is why it's a very confusing surah, because it switches between perspectives. This is now the angels speaking, yeah? This is the angel speaking about the jinn, about the negative entities, about the service to self entities. They said, we certainly thought that humans and jinn would never speak lies about Allah. That's the first translation. The second translation is, and we had thought that mankind and the jinn would never speak about Allah a lie. So the angels are looking down on the jinn, the negative entities that are causing all this war and disruption on earth, and they're saying, we never thought this would happen. We never thought they would cause such corruption on this planet, and lies, and spread so much hate, and lie about God and the oneness of God and the oneness of each other in the creation. But they are doing it. Okay? So then, 72.6. Now it's the angels. They're continuing to talk about the wickedness that people, human beings, have entered into by interacting with what they call the jinn, or these evil ones, or these service to self beings, or these service to self type beings. They say 72.6, the first translation from the clear Quran. And some men used to seek refuge with some jinn, so they increased each other in wickedness. So they increased each other in wickedness, yeah? They interacted with these jinns, and the wickedness, the evil just increased because they were interacting in a self-service, enslavement, elitism way. The second translation says, and there were men from mankind who sought refuge in the men from the jinn. There's a group of these people, like they say in the Ra material. A lot of them come from the Orion star system, who have come here, what they call the jinn. There's a group of them, and they're cohorting with them. They're taking advice from them. They're working with them in their evil plans. There were men from mankind who sought refuge in men from the jinn, so they only increased them in burden, i.e. in sin. More evil, more sin came about. And now the angel talking again, or the angel Gabriel is now talking again to the jinn, saying, and those humans thought just like you, jinn, that Allah would not resurrect anyone for judgment. Second translation, and they had thought as you thought, that Allah would never send anyone as a messenger. They're both accurate, because what they're saying is, the jinn and the humans, they thought, they would never have to answer for their troubles, for their sins, for their for their evil, for their wrongdoing. They'll never be judged for this. This is what they're saying that they thought. And, the second translation says, they never thought there would be a prophet of God to come and deliver the true message and reveal their evil ways and how they're corrupting humanity. But here it is, the Quran is here to do that. And the Prophet Muhammad is here to do that. Now it switches back to the jinn's perspective now. Yeah? This is now switched back to the jinn's perspective. This is the jinn on earth, right? 72.8. Now the jinn on earth, they're here, they've come, they've corrupted earth, they've corrupted humans, they've interacted, they're somewhere on earth living, they're in a higher density, so they're not visible to us on the physical plane. Alright? So the jinn are now saying, earlier we tried to reach heaven for news, only to find it filled with stern guards and shooting stars. Second translation, and we have sought to reach the heaven, but found it filled with powerful guards and burning flames. So they're on the earth, they've done their corruption, they're looking to go back into space. Maybe they want to fly back to their own star system, maybe they just want to escape, get out of earth now. They've done what they're doing, but they reach the quarantine, the light grid around the earth, and what do they see? They see stern guards. Ra material tell us that there are guardians of the solar system that have placed a quarantine of light around the planet, and I'll show you the reference now anyway, but they say, we tried to reach heaven for news. They tried to go out of heaven, tried to leave earth, to go to the astral realms, to go to the other places, to hear of what the people of God are saying, to get news about what's going on, and they found themselves approached. They tried to leave earth, and they've seen a quarantine of light, shooting stars, burning flames, and powerful guards there, stopping and waiting for them, looking at them, saying, we see you, we know what you've done here, now you must answer for what you've done. This, now, let's cross-reference that with the law of one, right? What they say about the quarantine. Now, it's going to sound a bit weird how the Ra group speak and they explain the quarantine. But basically, at this point in the material, they're basically explaining why basically a war happened on Mars and they had to quarantine Earth to stop any more negative entities and wars and pain and suffering happening on Earth, and the influence of outside negative entities or self-service entities to stop any more self-service entities interacting and causing disruption on Earth. So, this is question 9.9, yeah? The questioner, Donald Elkins, a professor, he's asking these ET people, he's talking about the quarantine now. And the Ra group are explaining what the quarantine is and why it was put on planet Earth. So the questioner asks, the Guardians obviously were acting with an understanding of the law of one in doing this, in putting the quarantine on Earth. Can you explain the application of the law of one in this process? The Ra group's reply, I am Ra. The law of one was named by these Guardians as bringing of the wisdom of the Guardians in contact with entities from the Red Planet, talking about planet Mars. Bit of a long story, but don't worry about that bit too much. Thus melding the social memory complex of the Guardian race and the Red Planet race, the Mars race. It, however, took an increasing amount of distortion into the application of the law of one from the viewpoint of the other Guardians, and it is from this beginning action that the quarantine of this planet was instituted, for it was felt that the free will of those of the Red Planet of Mars had been abridged. So something happened on Mars, there was a war, everyone on Mars died, the free will on Mars, they felt that the Martians' free will had been abridged, had been violated in a way, which led to them, it's a longer story, but eventually led to them putting the Guardians of the solar system, they had to put a quarantine around planet Earth, a quarantine of light around planet Earth. So, questioner then goes on to ask, is there any effort by Confederation to stop the Orion chariots from arriving here? Now, the Orion chariots, what I described to you, is what they refer to in the Quran as Jinn, evil self-entity beings of a higher distortion, of a higher density, of a higher dimension, who are trying to influence humans in a bad way, a negative way, causing elitism, enslavement, capital power, warmongering, etc. So they're asking, how does the Confederation of Planets, so our Guardians, the Guardians of our solar system are part of the Confederation of Planets. Confederation of Planets consists of about 50 planets. It's like a UN kind of thing. It's like a United Nations, but in space. Our council we have a council in our solar system, which is where the Guardians are from. The council in our solar system is called the Council of Saturn. And they basically are in charge of our solar system, and they are the guardians of our solar system, and they're there to impart God's free will, make sure God's free will is sustained for all human beings going through evolution, and the planets are not violated, and the free will of the planets and the people is sustained. So they're asking, is there any effort by the Confederation of Planets to stop the Orion chariots from arriving here? The Orion chariots are the spaceships, the spacecraft, the UFO that the Orions or the evil ones or the Jinn, they arrive in. So Ra say, I am Ra. Every effort is made to quarantine this planet. However, the network of Guardians, much like any other pattern of patrols on whatever level, does not hinder each and every entity from penetrating the quarantine. For if request is made in light or love, the law of one will be met with acquiescence. So they say, if a entity, a being, with a service to self or service to others, a good being who wants to do good, or a negative being who wants to do bad things, when they approach the quarantine, they'll have to present themselves in a manner of light and love. Now, this light and love will either determine whether you're a service to other person or you're a service to self person or group. Determining on which group you are, you'll have to abide by the quarantine. They say with acquiescence. Acquiescence basically means you accept something reluctantly. You reluctantly accept the process you're going to have to go to, basically explaining yourself to the Guardians why you're here, but they will do it without protest because you will be struck by the light of the quarantine. This is the light of the Creator, which they talk about in the Quran as the fire and the shooting stars. That will bathe you, your ship, your UFO, that will bathe you, and you will have to answer to the Guardians on why you want to be here. Some of them that approach this planet, they don't want to do that, but it says they'll be met. They say that the answer to the light is met with acquiescence. Acquiescence means you accept something reluctantly but without protest. So although some of them might be reluctant to answer to the guardians and say why they're here at the planet and what they want to do, they will do it without protest, although it may be reluctant. So the law of one will be met with acquiescence. If the request is not made due to the slipping through the net, then there is penetration of this net. So what they explain is about this quarantine, this light grid that they put around the planet, is that it's a working grid, so it's an alive grid, and it's been manufactured by the guardians of the planet. But unfortunately, there are faults in the grid. There are sometimes holes and little portals that people can slip through the grid and get into Earth undetected. And they say that this unfortunately does happen. So if the request is not made, the only way the request cannot be met, the request I just talked about, where they have to answer for their reasons why they are approaching this planet, if the request is not made or not met, the only way that they can get through the quarantine without meeting the terms of the request is from slipping through the net. Then there is a penetration of the net, the quarantine that protects the planet. There's little faults, they can slip through, unfortunately, and some entities do get through without answering to the guardians. And then the questioner goes on to ask, I didn't quite understand, how does the Confederation stop the Orion chariots coming through the quarantine? What actions do they take? Ra says, there is contact at the level of light form or light body being, depending on the vibratory level of the guardian. As I said, like they teach in Islam with the 7 heavens, the Ra material also teaches 7 densities. So if you're of the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th density, it depends on what kind of interaction you will have. So it says there's contact at the level of light form or light body being, depending on the vibratory level of the guardian. So yeah, the guardian at the time might be of the 4th, 5th, 6th heaven, or 4th, 5th, 6th density. They explain what these guardians do. These guardians sweep reaches of your Earth's energy field, attempting to be aware of any entities approaching the planet. An entity which is approaching is held in the name of the one creator. Stop! In the name of the one creator, in the name of God, Allah. And it says any entity thus hailed is bathed in love and light. They're bathed in light, yeah, and will of free will obey the quarantine due to the power of the law of one. The law of one is the law of God, the law of oneness, which they teach in the Quran. And they will obey the quarantine and they will answer for why they're here. Now let's cross-reference that back to the Quran. What did they say? Earlier we tried to reach heaven for news, only to find it filled with stern guards and shooting stars. Guardians and shooting stars and light. The second translation, we sought to reach heaven but found it filled with powerful guards. Who are these guards? We now know who these guards are. The guardians of the planet, the guardians of the quarantine of Earth. And burning flames, light and flames and shooting stars approached them when they tried to leave or tried to enter the planet. Now let's go back to the Quran. This is the jinn who are on Earth now talking about how life was before the quarantine was placed on planet Earth. They say we used to take our positions there for eavesdropping. We used to be able to leave Earth and listen to the service to other beings and listen to the angels and listen to the good beings. But now, whoever dares eavesdrop now will find a flare lying in wait for them. They will go to the quarantine, they will see flares, lights, stars, guardians waiting for them. And we used to sit there in positions of hearing. This is the second translation, they used to sit there in positions of hearing. They used to be able to leave and hear what was going on with the Confederation of Planets, hear what was going on with the guardians of our solar system, hear what was going on with the angels. But now there's a quarantine in place. We used to sit there in positions of hearing, but whoever listens now will find a burning flame lying in wait for him. We've just discovered a revelation in the Quran, man. Can you believe it? What a thing, man. Now it switches. This is what's really interesting, yeah? It switches to the viewpoint of the jinn or the Orions, the self-service people, service to self entities. It switches to the view of them, the ones outside the quarantine now, who are looking to come to Earth. Yeah? they say, because now there's a quarantine, it's difficult for them to come to Earth and corrupt. Now look what they say. These are the jinns, you remember? From outside Earth. They're in their UFO, they're in their spaceship, they're travelling to Earth. There's a quarantine there, they can't come, they can't corrupt, they can't get involved like they used to, Now, see what they say. Verse 72.10 in the Quran. Now we have no clue whether evil is intended for those on Earth or their Lord intends for them what is right. Now they have no clue what is going on here. They cannot enter here. They cannot get through the quarantine. They cannot find out if the mankind has succumbed to evil or whether they are living in the Lord's way, or what the Lord intends for them, what is right. Second translation, and we do not know thereof whether evil is intended for those on earth, or whether their Lord intends for them a right course. Now they do not know. They do not know what their actions have caused. They do not know what the other jinn or the other Orions are doing on earth, and what if the evil, if the evil route is working, or if the people have gone on the Lord's right course. As I said, they've followed what the Lord intends for them and what is right. Because the quarantine is there, it's in place. We're solving the mysteries of Surah Al-Jinn as we speak, people. And then 722.11. Now, this is where it comes even more clear. Because these are groups of beings. They're groups of beings in, spaceships, UFOs coming from the Orion system or whatever planet or planetary system or star system they're coming from. They're arriving in their groups. And there's groups of them, but in the raw material they explain that in these groups, although they are all service to self beings who want to enslave and colonize and cause elitism and evil and corruption, and cause other people, the people on earth in this case, to follow a service to self path rather than a service to other path where we love each other and we care for each other and we see each other as one. They want to cause separatism and evil. So yeah, now you have the jinn who in their groups talking, and the Ra group explain that there are factions within service to self planets. There's always like factions of people who don't quite agree with what's going on, or they don't agree with the evil, or they don't agree with the way it's going, because basically they say that for a planet to evolve there must be oneness, and to have oneness you can't have too much of a degree of conflict, of contrasting interests and attitudes and beliefs. But obviously with this kind of domination that these type of beings are looking to put upon other planets and planetary beings, there's always going to be conflicts and conversations and politics, and people are not going to agree with everything. So now it's showing you those jinn, those Orion people who are trying to come to Earth, and the Quran is showing you, which is amazing. The Quran is showing you their kind of inside take on the whole situation. 72.11, they're saying, among us, the jinn, there are those who are righteous and there are those who are less so. We have been of different factions. So although they come from this service to self, colonialist, dominating, warlike planet, they're saying within us, there are some of us who are not this service to self evil type, who want to dominate and control and enslave. The second translation, and among us are the righteous. So there are some righteous among them, they're saying, and among us are others not so righteous, the evil ones. We were of divided ways. This really opens up the true nature of what the jinn is, what the Quran is. These are people of higher densities from other planets who are looking to impart their ways on our planet, basically, and other planets who are of a lower density, of a lower spiritual evolutionary state than them. By showing you, even within those groups, there are factions and there are disagreements. It's not everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. Crazy, man. And then 72.12, they say, this is like the admittance. This is kind of like the jinn on Earth. They've been defeated, and the jinn coming from space still trying to interact with Earth. They've also kind of been defeated, and they admit their downfall and how they've fallen at the power of God. They say, now we truly know that we cannot frustrate Allah on Earth, nor can we escape from Him into heaven. Now this second one is what really made me say this is 100% what they're talking about in the raw material. And we have become certain that we will never cause failure to Allah upon earth, nor can we escape him by flight. They cannot hop into their spaceships and escape the earth by flight. They're here. The quarantine is here. The guardians are here. The Confederation of Planets is here watching the quarantine. The Council of our solar system is here watching and guarding and patrolling that quarantine, making sure they're seeing these people, they know what they're doing, they're making them pay for what they've done on Earth. And go back to the first quote on this one. Now we truly know that we cannot frustrate Allah on Earth. What they're doing on Earth, yes, it has effect, but the true frustration will not be there because they have to answer to it. The quarantine is there, the guardians are there, and they will have to answer for what they've done. And it says, nor can we escape from him into heaven. We can't just do our corruption on Earth and escape. There's a quarantine now. There's a light quarantine with guards and flames and shooting stars and bathing in the love and light of the Creator, waiting for them when they try to escape Earth. Now we cross-reference it back to the law of one. And yeah, so in the law of one, the questioner goes on to ask, what would happen to the entity if he did not obey the quarantine after being held? So the quarantine of light, talk about in the Quran, talk about it here. If they did not obey the quarantine after being held, what would happen to this person? I am Ra say to not obey the quarantine after being held on the level of which we speak would be equivalent to you not stopping upon walking into a solid brick wall. If they try to fly through the quarantine in their spacecraft, smashed to pieces, destroyed, mashed down, licked down, done. They'd be done out, fam. And they go on to ask, what would happen to the entity if he did this? What would happen to his chariot? His chariot, his spacecraft, his vehicle that he's traveling in, what would happen? They say the Creator is one being. The vibrancy level of those able to reach the quarantine boundaries is such that upon seeing the love light net, it is impossible to break this law. Therefore, nothing happens. No attempt is made. There is no confrontation. The only beings are able to penetrate the quarantine are those who discover windows or distortions in the space-time continua surrounding your planet's energy field, which we discussed earlier. There are unfortunately some holes in the quarantine net due to the electromagnetic fields of the planet, which some entities have managed to slip through, but it says through these windows they come. These windows, however, are rare and unpredictable. So, just to confirm one more time, let's go back. This quarantine window, upon seeing the love light net, it is impossible to break this law. Nothing happens, no attempt is made, no confrontation. Then it says about the beings that are able to slip through, but no confrontation. Yeah, they're held and they are bathed in light. If they try to go through that light, it's like hitting a brick wall. Hitting a brick wall, because there's no confrontation. They cannot destroy the love light, the light of the Creator, which is used to protect this planet. Yeah, let's just one more reiterate what exactly these guardians do. They say there is contact at the level of light form or light body being, depending upon the vibrancy level of the guardian. These guardians sweep the reaches of your Earth's energy field, attempting to be aware of any entities approaching. So there's a quarantine and you've got guardians. There's guardians. We can't see them. They're flying around the Earth. They're constantly patrolling, seeing if anyone's trying to get through or get out, or if they're trying to get in, they're trying to get out. What's their purpose? What they're doing? Is it in love and light? Is it in service to others, or is it in service to self? They're seeing what's going on. And when an entity is approached, they're held in the name of the Creator. Stop in the name of the Creator. Any entity thus held is bathed in love, light, and will of free will obey the quarantine due to the power of the law of one. Now we go back to the Quran one last time. Earlier we tried to reach heavens for news, only to find it filled with stern guards and shooting stars. And we have sought to reach the heaven, but found it filled with powerful guards and burning flames. Whoever dares eavesdrop now will find a flare lying in wait for them, will find a burning flame lying in wait. We solved a major portion of Surah Al-Jinn here. We now understand what Surah Al-Jinn is talking about. Talking about the quarantine of light that was put around planet Earth 75,000 years ago to maintain our free will, to protect us, to serve us, to stop any more outside influence corrupting Earth. There's so much corruption on this planet already. It was put on there 75,000 years ago to try and decrease and control the amount of corruption on Earth. Some beings have slipped through, unfortunately. Corruption is still going on. There's still some jinn on Earth, but there's now a boundary there, a quarantine of light, patrolled by guards, which the Quran describes flames, shooting stars, a quarantine, a net of light, what the Ra material described as a electromagnetic net of light, electromagnetic quarantine net, a net of light covering the planet, patrolled by guards who hail you in the name of the Creator, and you must answer to if you want to interact with this planet. Guys, tell me what you think, man. I think we've stumbled across something amazing here. I'm gassed, man. I'm gassed. I can't believe I've found this. The revelation from the Quran is just amazing here. You know, syncing it up with this text that came out in 1981. It just explains it, man. There's no, for me, this is 99.999% a matchup. The cross-referencing is undeniable. The congruency is undeniable. The powerful guards, the burning flame, the shooting stars, the net of protection, the electromagnetic net patrolled by guardians of our solar system, by the Council of Planets. Come on. Wow. Guys, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know your opinion. Share it with your imams. Share it with your muftis if you know anyone, any Islamic scholars you know. Share it and show it to as many people as possible. Let's get opinion on this. We may have just revealed an amazing revelation from the Quran. I can't believe it. I'm gassed. Guys, like, comment, subscribe. Share it with as many people as possible. Get this out there. Let's get Muslim scholars really commenting on this. Let's get people really who study the Quran to let us know what they think about it. Let me know what you guys think about it. I've been Dan. Like, comment, subscribe. As always, peace, love, and I'm out.